Hey Flower Tribe, today I'm going to tell you how to dig up and store your tubers in fall. If we haven't met yet, it's nice to meet you. My name is Kellylehman. I'm the owner of Cranbury Fields Flower Farm here in Cranbury, New Jersey, and I love giving you guys fun, free flower tips. So please feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit the bell notification so you know whenever I post another fun, free flower tip video. So guys, let's dive right in. So it is fall right here in my New Jersey garden. We're planting hardiness zone 6, and we've already had like 2 or 3 hard frosts. So my dahlia plants look something like this. They're kind of like gloppy. The winter zap got it. And what I did was I didn't dig out the dahlia right away. So I didn't come out here right after that first frost and dig it up, because dahlia tubers need a little while to mature in the ground and cure. If you dig them up too soon, they may not come back as strong in the spring. And I have to say, we're, like I said, in a planting hardiness zone 6. If you live in a warm climate, you may be able to just kind of treat your dahlias as an perennial, and you can actually skip this step and you may not even have to store them. But if you live in a colder climate, they're probably not going to survive that winter freeze. So once that ground freezes, chances are that tuber is going to freeze and you're not going to be able to use it again. So that's why I'm out here digging them up. So I'm going to show you some of the easy steps that I do to dig them up and store them. So like I said, we had a hard frost, like we had 2 of them already, and I left them in the ground for at least another week. And now I hopefully that they're cured. I know some people like to leave them in for like at least 2 weeks. I don't want to risk it because temps are going to start to drop, I think, to like the high 20s, below freezing in just a few days. So I want to make sure that I have time to dig these up before it gets like super, super cold. So what I did was I came in here. I'm going to ask you to move, lady. Excuse me, big dog. Scoot you over here. Come on. Oh, you're a good girl. Okay, you stay there. That a girl. Okay. So we're just going to cut off some of these like goopy frozen stems. I know that some gardeners come in and they just cut off all that dead frozen foliage and the dead flowers, and then they'll leave them in the ground. But usually those are the gardeners that live in a drier climate, because those stems are hollow. And if you live in a wet climate and it starts to collect a lot of moisture, you may start getting some rot on the crown. So other gardeners prefer to go in there and cut things down and then dig them up the same day. It all depends on where your area is. And I think a really good trick to do, guys, is to jump on the Kellylehman's Flower Tribe Facebook group, because there are gardeners from all over the world, and a lot of them have done this in their climate. So if you can just jump over there and say, hey, I'm Kelly from New Jersey. Does anybody have any great, dahlia tips for how to dig and store them? You're probably going to wind up hearing from a gardener that lives near you that can tell you like the best practices for your neck of the woods, because it's really going to depend a lot on like if you have like a warm climate or a dry climate or a wet climate. But here's what I do here. I left some of these, I did come out and I clipped the top of the stems and I let them, kind of cure a little bit longer for like a week. And the other ones, I'm kind of doing an experiment this year to see which one's coming better. These guys I'm clipping off today, and I'm going to dig them up the same day. So I'm leaving a few inches of the stem above the ground, just because it's going to help me handle it a little bit better later on. And they're kind of gunky and yucky right now, and that's okay, so no worries. So now that I've got, the base of my plant here, I'm going to dig around it. When I dig around it, I'm going to make sure that I don't go right up against the plant, because those tubers at this point have grown and they're going to stretch out and they're all over here. So I want to make sure that I don't go too close to the base, because I don't want to slice into those tubers, because then I cannot use it as a new plant for next year. So I'm going to come way out, probably about, about 2 feet, a foot and a half. And I'm going to start digging around the plant very gently. It's also a good idea to do this a little bit after you've had a rainstorm, so that the ground isn't super dry and cement-like. So we had a lot of rain, so this is awesome. I know other gardeners like to do this step with a pitchfork, but it's up to you. Sometimes just use what you have handy. And once again, I don't want to break anything. I don't want to break the tubers. I don't want to break the necks on the tuber. So I'm going super, super gentle, and I'm digging as deep as I can. Because if you can get underneath it, that's going to be better. You won't crack anything off. So now I can kind of start seeing where this plant is. Now I know I can come in a little bit closer. I can kind of see how it's lifting. I'm getting way underneath. Nice and gentle. Again, don't ruin this in the end game here, guys, because as you start to take away some of this dirt, These are your tubers, so make sure that you're not being super rough. Otherwise, you're going to wind up breaking them off and then you won't be able to use them, because this could be next year's plant. Let's get out. Guys, resist the urge right now to bang it on the ground, because if you bang it on the ground, once again, things are going to start snapping off. So I'm going to take some time, gently remove the soil. Wow. It's like Christmas time on the farm here. Look at these beautiful, beautiful tubers. Okay. So gorgeous. Sometimes it's easier to kind of start removing it from the bottom. I'm holding it at the base. And I'm making sure that I don't let any of these guys crack off as I'm doing it. I'm going to wind up getting the rest of the dirt off of here, because you want to make sure that you get rid of all the microorganisms that are on here. You want to make sure that you don't have any kind of disease or any kind of like living things in here. You don't want to have any like excess moisture as you're wintering this over. Okay guys, so now we're just going to rinse off all that dirt, all the worms, all the extra stuff that we don't need. Clean these guys up a bit. Got a rock in here. Be super gentle with these guys. You got this far, you don't want to start breaking those necks off yet. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. See these little guys in here? These are the necks, these little tiny doodads. So make sure that you're not too rough with them. You don't blast them with too much water, because they're very, very fragile. You can have it with more of like a broad spray. It's probably better, because a lot of times my hose gets stuck on just like that stream, and that might break some things off. So if you have a broader, gentler spray, that would be better, even though sometimes mine doesn't work very good. So guys, now I'm going to bring these in my flower shop, and you can do this in your garage, or if you have, you know, some place that won't have a freezing temperature and has indirect sunlight. And I'm going to let these clumps dry out for at least a day or two. Now it depends once again on, you know, your climate. If you have a dry climate or a wet climate, you might want to check them after a day. And if they feel like, you know, they're basically dry, most of the moisture is off of them, then they're going to be good to go. If they still feel like they're soaking wet, they're really damp, give it at least 2 days. I know other people wait even longer. Some people might wait a couple days. Double check what the gardeners in your neck of the woods are doing as far as that, and check that out again with the Kellylehman's Flower Tribe Facebook group, or Google it. I mean, a lot of times you can find out your specific state or country and what people are doing there. So I'm going to give mine probably about a day or two just to dry out. But in the meantime, I'm going to take you to the next step just to show you what I'll be doing in 2 days. So I want to wind up packing these guys in some vermiculite that's lightly moistened. Now, other people use wood chips. I know some people like to use peat moss, but I like to use vermiculite, and I'm going to wind up making sure that it's slightly damp. So it's not going to be soaked, but yet it is going to be slightly damp, and I'll show you how I do that in the next step. So guys, I just put the vermiculite in a bucket, and I'm going to add a little bit of moisture. I want to make sure it's not too moist because I don't want to have any kind of mold issues. So I'm digging way down deep. And I'm just going to kind of stir it like a cake batter. So guys, now I'm going to find a crate that has some really good ventilation. So I'm either going to use a crate that has a lot of holes in it, or I'm going to use a cardboard box because you want to make sure that there's some airflow. I wouldn't use like one of those plastic bins that have no holes in them because I think it's just going to make it like a little bit too moist. I know a lot of people like to use newspapers, a line like, you know, the bottom of this with some newspaper. You can do that. That's a great idea. You can also use some burlap wrap. I'm a huge fan of burlap wrap. I don't know. I have it all over the place. We sell our burlap wrap bouquet, so I've always got a whole bunch of this, and it just, I don't know, it's just easy to work with. It has a lot of aeration. Guys, at this stage of the game, you can cut these stems off. Oops, I think I just cut. No, well, this guy was kind of yucky, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to cut this off here. I know a lot of seasoned gardeners will clean their clippers with a little bit of bleach and water between each set of clumps that they divide. Because if one has a disease, you're going to wind up spreading that disease to the next clump. So make sure that you constantly clean your clippers You could do a little solution of 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. So just dip them, sterilize, and then move on to the next plant so that you don't spread anything that's super funky. And now I'm just gonna let these guys kind of dry out, and I'm gonna label them. So I'm gonna write the name of each of them on here. So you're gonna write your name. I would put the name of the dahlia. I would put the date that you stored them. So it's 11 of 21. And then I'm going to just basically wrap it around the plant. And then I'll know who this is next year. Wrap it around. Done. Okay. Okay. So once these have dried out, the next step that I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you it with these plants, but know that, you know, they really should be dried out. But this is the next step that I'm going to do. I've got my burlap wrap here. I'm actually going to give it just a second, little layer here. So I've got 2 layers of burlap here. I've got my slightly moistened vermiculite, and I'm just going to add some of that to the bottom. Dump it right in, actually. Just a little layer in the bottom. Spread it out. And add a little bit more. Then I'm going to lay my tubers in here. Now, guys, here's a decision that you need to make at this point. Some gardeners like to take their tubers at this stage and they divide them. And when they divide them, what they do is they take a look to see if they can find one that has a tuber and a neck and a viable eye, like kind of like that swollen spot. And at that point, you can kind of like cut into them. I'm going to make you a separate video showing you exactly how I divide mine. I don't divide mine until the spring. So I'm going to wind up showing you a separate video how to do that. Some gardeners do like to do that at this stage, so you can. But this is, you know, we're going to go ahead and just kind of store them and then do the dividing later. But if you want to divide them now, you can. But just make sure that you always have a tuber, a neck, and a viable eye. So I'm just going to get these guys stored in here now. Before I do that, though, I'm going to make sure I cut off any of them that don't look too good. So I want to make sure that the ones that were kind of cut off or have root rot, or any ones that were kind of sliced into are gone. Got a couple extra rocks in here I'm just kind of plucking out. Taking a look around here. And once these guys actually do dry out, I'm going to have a better look at what's what. I'm actually going to cut this off because I could tell this has a little bit of mushiness to it. So any kind of mushiness that you have on your plant, there's a good chance it's going to spread to the rest of the plant and it's going to, just cause some bad situations. So cut off any of the mush that you can and any of the parts that you don't need. So once this is dried out, I'm going to lie him right in here very gently, and I'm going to cover him with some more vermiculite. Now I could probably fit some smaller ones over here to the side. You want to make sure that they're not touching. So I may actually wind up dividing a couple of them and laying them like on the side over here, maybe some smaller tubers over here. You just want to make sure that they're not touching each other. And then once I'm done with that, I'm just going to cover it with the burlap. And I'm going to make sure that I leave it in a cool, dry, dark place. Just make sure the tubers are kept chilled. You want to make sure that they're below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's above freezing. And you want to make sure that the material stays moist, but still allows the airflow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store these like in my flower shop here, but you can also do it in like your garage. And I'm going to wind up checking on them like once a month. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to feel if this vermiculite is still lightly moistened. If I feel that it totally dried out, it's totally crumbly like sand, I'm going to wind up giving it a little mist with some water, and then I'm going to cover it back up. So check each of your storage bins each time you do the check, because sometimes one storage bin is fine and the other one might wind up having a tuber that had rotted out, and then it's going to affect the entire batch. So those are basically the tips that I have for you to dig up and store your dahlia tubers, and I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. I'd like to thank the fine folks over at DutchBulbs.com because they sponsored this video. And guys, I'm going to put a link in descriptions below so you can buy some of their terrific products. And a lot of times I will wind up planting their daffodils and their tulips and their alliums this time of year in fall, and they wind up giving me beautiful spring bulbs. And then I love using their dahlia plants to plant in the springtime, so I'll put their link in descriptions below. I love their flowers, and I think you're going to love them too. Thank you so much for joining us in this video, and please join us over on my Cranbury Fields Instagram page, and please hop on over to my Kellylehman's Flower Tribe Facebook group, because there's thousands of gardeners from all over the world, and they're asking and answering tons of garden questions over there. And I will see you in the next video.